Winter is my favorite time of the year, mainly for two different reasons. One reason is I live in Arizona, and when it's not winter, it's 110 out every single day. So at least this time of year, I can go fishing all day and just not sweat to death, basically. The other reason is also living in Arizona, some of our lakes are very blessed sometimes to get trout stockings, and that means I get to chase after fish that primarily will feed on trout this time of the year. And that means I get to throw big trout imitating soft swim baits. And so today we're going to be talking about my three favorite of the soft swim baits that I throw this time of year, how I fish it, why I think they're really good baits, and all the other good reasons to have these baits. So if you guys are ready, let's get right into today's video.
That was ridiculous. That's good. Nice little butterball. First fish together in probably years. Yeah, that little guy. Jesus Christ. Holy shit. Fucking hell. What an absolute battle that fucking was. Holy shit. Weigh this fish real fast. I think it's like a 7 something. Nice, fat, healthy fish. Nice fish. Beautiful, beautiful bass. Not a single mark on her. Thick all the way down. Beauty. Look how fat that fish is. Gripper. Fast. Oh wow. Okay. Actually, a bit bigger than I thought. 8-pound, 2-ounce fish. Wow. Just because of how fat that fish is. Beautiful, beautiful bass. Goodness gracious. So sick. Look at that fish. Big, beautiful fish. 8-pound, 2-ounce fish. Extremely healthy fish. Couldn't be any happier. That one ate it right at the boat. That's a good one. Probably an 8 something. Alright, we're gonna go see how much this big girl weighs. I'm thinking like high 8, the scale. Scale should be zeroed out. That's what I'm hoping for. Just an absolute beautiful fish. All right. Okay. She's actually a little bit smaller than I thought. Still a good fish. 8 pounds, 3 ounces. Just a big, fat, gorgeous fish. Probably been eating trout, just short. This fish is probably only like 22 inches, but she is thick from the head all the way down to the tail section. Just a nice, gorgeous fish. So awesome. Gotta love it. Okay. Fat fish. All right. Nice. Big fat fish. She's biting my hand right now. Ow. See you around. See you around.
So this time of year, the water temperature is obviously dropping. My water out here in Arizona will get anywhere from 55 down to maybe 49 at maybe the lowest. And in that kind of range at 49 to 55, I really find that these fish out here start really relating to deeper water or points, rock piles, high spots a lot more, just because that water temperature kind of cools down quite a bit. And I feel like once that water temperature really cools down, once those trout get put in the water, at that water temperature, I feel like the trout become more active in a way. And those trout basically will try and find the coldest water, which could be in super, super deep water offshore. But when that water temperature is really cold, those trout are willing to kind of just swim around, whether it's shallow or deep, around the points, around these rock piles, where these fish will then end up kind of setting up in an ambush spot to feed on those trout. So when that happens, I always really like to go over to a soft swim bait. Now, obviously, I can still catch them on like a hinkle trout or a big glide bait. However, I find that a lot more of my bites, some of my bigger bites, will actually end up coming on that soft swim bait. My buddy Adrian over at Scales and Tails, he just put out a really good soft bait video. I'll leave a link to it if you guys wanted to check it out. But basically, in his video, he's talking about, why a soft bait is one of the best ways to catch trophy-sized fish. And I would absolutely have to agree with him. Obviously, guys have caught absolute giant fish on the hard baits, but consistently wise, it always seems like the soft bait is kind of the go-to. And that could do with a wide variety of different reasons, whether or not where we're fishing the soft bait instead of a hard bait, or how a soft bait will swim and how a glide bait swims. And all these different factors can kind of lead into one having better results than the other. However, today I kind of wanted to go over 3 of the soft baits within the last few years that I've been fishing kind of religiously and have had a lot of success with. The first one we're going to talk about is a bait that I've talked about in the past, but when I talked about it in the past, I talked about it in a higher water column, a floating soft swim bait. But for the most part, with the Tyrant 10 by Working Class Zero, a lot of the times I'm just fishing it down on the bottom bouncing it with the top hook rig that comes in the Hangman kit from Working Class Zero. Now, when I first got this bait, the idea of it was to kind of fish it up top on the surface, and I caught a couple fish out here in Arizona on it, doing it that way. I caught some fish in Texas doing it that way as well, and I found it to be really, really good. However, when I kind of brought it back to some of my own lakes, I found that the fish that see those trout on my specific bodies of water, they don't eat off the surface like they used to a long time ago, and that's from a wide variety of different reasons, but it is what it is. So nowadays, I kind of just basically live a lot of my Tyrants on a bottom bouncing or maybe 3, 4, 5 feet underneath the surface, never really up on the surface. That's just how my fish are built, and there's going to be some places in the country where they just don't eat off the surface, and some other places where they absolutely love a bait on the surface. So this is definitely my number one way of fishing the bait. This rigging right here has caught me 2 double digits, my new personal best at 12 pounds, 14 ounces. And so it's kind of just a really good confidence bait. The way that I have it rigged, the way that I fish it, it works for my style, and I just absolutely love this bait. The other way that I also like fishing this bait is with just the beast hook, so kind of the more weedless style. So out on some of my lakes, we have a lot of fish habitats, whether that be like these plastic tree looking things or these big pipe PVC things that Game and Fish dumps in the water for basically no reason. But you can't really fish, you can definitely fish this thing through, but if you want to have a much better success rate going through that gnarlier stuff, I will just go to this beast hook style, and it comes through that stuff super, super well, and I never have to worry. And a lot of the times, going to something like this, being able to fish it through that super gnarly stuff where a lot of guys can't fish an exposed hook like this, you can get a lot more bites on that beast hook. So these are kind of the main 2 ways that I fish the Tyrant 10 that I've had a lot of success with. Talking with Mike Gilbert, A lot of his big fish have come on that top hook, but he's caught a lot of fish as well on the beast hook. I know my buddy Jason, Bass Jack, a lot of his giant fish that he caught on the Tyrant have come on the beast hook style. He believes that the fish can actually feel this hook kind of coming through the water. It's a whole thing that I don't know if I want to spill too much about, but overall, I think he likes that beast hook that just where there's just nothing really coming off this bait to show that the fish that it's something fake, that something weird is going on with it. Now, last year, Mike Gilbert of Working Glass Zero, he actually ended up coming out with the smaller version, the 8-inch Tyrant. And in comparison wise, it's a pretty big difference in bait size. And last season, the trout that got stocked in my lake were basically this size, like 8-inch size. I saw some that looked even like 6 inches. And I felt like the fish were really, really just keyed in on this size a lot more. Like I would be throwing that 10-inch Tyrant, I'd get bit, I'd get a good bite, but they kind of just didn't really eat it very well. So then I would tie on the 8-inch Tyrant, throw back out there, and catch the fish. Now, were they giant fish? No, they were like 5 and 6 pounders, but it just seemed like they were eating that 8-inch Tyrant just a little bit better than that 10-inch. So I caught a lot of fish on that 8-inch Tyrant. I found this bait to be just a lot of fun to fish. And kind of where this bait lived for me was skipping it underneath docks, underneath boats. I caught a lot of fish doing it that way, fishing it off of points as well. And so the 8-inch Tyrant has become basically my second favorite swim bait. My second favorite soft swim bait. It just gets absolutely bit. It's a perfect size. Where before, I used to fish the 8-inch Huddleston a lot, but for some reason I never ever really got bit on it. It just never seemed to work for me, and I don't know if that was because everybody had Huddlestons at the time and the fish were kind of just over that style and seeing it almost every single day during the winter. And so to throw something that has a different kick, a different profile, and it could have made a difference, it could have not, but in my head, I think it is a difference when you have a bait that not everybody has access to and the fish haven't really seen before. I feel like they do kind of let their guard down when you're showing them something slightly bit different, something a little bit new. And that's where I found the 8-inch Tyrant. Personally, for me, I've never really been a fan of that 8-inch and undersized swim bait. So like a HUD 68, an 8-inch HUD, or anything in that size. I was never really a huge fan of it just because I felt like it was too small. But last season, fishing it caught me a lot of fish. It saved me a lot of days from not getting skunked. And so it was kind of like a get out of jail free card, downsizing to this little 8-inch Tyrant. My third biggest fish of last season, which was a high 8-pounder, was caught on the 8-inch Tyrant. So it does catch big fish, even though it is a smaller bait. My buddy Phoenix, he caught 3 giant bass on the 8-inch Tyrant, all double-digit class fish. And so the 8-inch Tyrant will absolutely still catch you that giant bass that you're searching for. I just felt like once you go up to that 10-inch size, you really start weeding out those 5 and 6 pounders, and you really start getting into that upper echelon size of fish. Now, again, my personal best 12-pounder came on this bait. I have a double digit on this bait at 10 pounds, 8 ounces on this thing. So two out of the 3 biggest fish of my life have come on this bait all last season. So there's definitely a special place in my heart for this 10-inch Tyrant. You're not going to get a whole lot of fish on it, but it seems like the ones that you do, you're going to be catching some really big ones. And, with this 8-inch Tyrant, in Japan, I caught a fish with it. I've been catching fish out here with it. One of my favorite ways to fish it is just the beast hook style. As you guys can tell, this one's absolutely chewed up. I mean, missing eyes on both sides. It's got Japan fish. It's got fish out here on a multitude of different lakes. Like, it just absolutely gets bit. I mean, this one's still trucking through. You throw some mended on it, and it just holds up. I mean, getting my use out of this one bait. The other way that I like to fish it is just, again, bottom balancing it with that little hook on top. Throw a couple nail weights in here, and you're able to bounce this thing on the bottom super stealth-like. I kind of melt that little hook in there too. So it tries to be as stealth as possible. So if a fish does come up on it, it doesn't really question it too much. So those are kind of my 2 favorite ways to fish this bait. Kind of that beast hook is definitely my number 1. And then number 2 would definitely be that top hook little rig right there. Now, before getting the Tyrants, my favorite swim bait of the time, which caught my first ever double digit, was of course the Hog Hunter Magnum. I mean, a lot of guys nowadays obviously know what this bait is. Before, it used to be called the Batesmith Magnum, but they kind of redesigned the tail a little bit. They kind of changed up a few of the features, and overall, I think they made the bait a lot better. And this was kind of the deal for me a couple of years ago, where it just seemed like the fish wanted something super, super realistic. And obviously, you don't get more realistic than the Hog Hunter Magnum. It's a fantastic, fantastic lure. A lot of guys have caught a lot of giant bass on this bait. It has a tremendous track record under its belt. And just overall, it's a really, really beautiful bait. And before, kind of the same way that I fished the Tyrant 10, you just fish it around points, rock piles, high spots, stuff like that, and it just absolutely performed super, super well. Great colors. Now, at the time, this was the most expensive kind of soft swim bait on the market at, $100. Now the Tyrant 10 is like $130, the Tyrant 8's $115, and so now this is kind of a more reasonable soft swim bait to get, and you get something that's absolutely beautiful. Now, guys might ask me like, all right, if you're going to choose one, would you choose the Magnum? Or would you choose the Tyrant 10? And it kind of goes back to what I was saying before about the Huddleston and that 8-inch Tyrant is a lot of guys are able to pick up these Hog Hunter Magnums. And so a lot of the fish will just see that Magnum over and over and over and over and over again. And so I felt like when I was able to switch over to the Tyrants, I felt like I was getting more bites and bigger bites on that 10-inch Tyrant than I did with the Magnum, just because it was something different. However, if I, last season I did fish this Magnum like one time and I caught one like 7.5 pounder on it. So I was like, okay, like it still will get bites for me. However, after fishing with the Tyrant, I felt like it was a much better soft bait in the terms of being able to adjust on the fly. And what I mean by that is on the Tyrant, there's a lot of soft plastic around the bait in a lot of the different areas. So you're able to fit in nail weights here, up here, back here, and just have it weighted to a very certain way that you want it to. And the fins on here they're not anything crazy. Like the fins are not going to rip off on you. With the Magnum, after a while, after catching some fish and fishing with it, these awesome, cool looking realistic fins, they're going to start ripping on you and you're going to start losing them. But the biggest problem with me with the Magnum was that there's this inner core here that comes pretty far back. Like it's back here. And so the bait does not fold at all. So you kind of have to go with this stinger hook here in the back. And this stinger hook has saved me a lot of fish. Obviously, you're going to get fish that just completely smoke this thing. Like my first double digit absolutely swallowed the Magnum. But a lot of the fish that I catch just come back here. And you'll see like a lot of my bite marks are from here back. And that's just them kind of coming back here, not being able to fold it because of this inner core. As well as when you come up here to the front, there's not a lot of soft plastic to throw in nail weights on either side. If you wanted it to weight it a lot heavier, fish it maybe faster on the bottom, there's just not a lot of plastic here. So there's definitely some downfalls to this Magnum where the Tyrant kind of fixed that problem where this thing folds. I mean, the only thing that's in here that would prevent it from maybe folding is that bubble system. But I mean, you're able to fold all of this. All of that, where before the Magnum would fold maybe like here. So this bait fits in those fish's mouth a lot easier than that Magnum. And that's kind of what you want, is you want a big soft bait like this just to fold in on itself when that fish comes in and just smokes it off the bottom. And that's why you're able to kind of get away with just one small little treble hook up on the top of the head. So when they smoke it, it folds up, it collapses in their mouths, and it goes the whole bait into their mouth. Even the small guys are going to be able to get it as well. Like 3, 4, 5 pounders will eat this 10-inch Tyrant and you're still hooking them. And you just have one tiny little hook on the front of that. And so overall, in the long run, I've absolutely fallen in love with the Tyrant 10 just because of the customizations that you can do with this bait, how it folds, where you can put the nail weights, and so you can have it adjust. You can have it be like a super slow sink. You can fish it down on the bottom super quick. So it's the adjustability that I like to be able to do on the fly out on the water, where yes, the Magnum is an absolutely amazing bait. I love this bait, but there's shortcomings to this bait that I hope maybe in the future the guys over at Hog Hunter will kind of address, so you can change it slightly a bit around. But overall, I think the Tyrant, for guys that want to be able to adjust their baits pretty quick and not have to fumble around with stuff, I think the Tyrant is an absolute no-brainer. If you just want something just straight out of the box where you're fine with rigging a stinger on the back, then you can absolutely just go with the Magnum. I mean, profile-wise, nothing beats the Magnum. And again, the track record on this bait's fantastic, but I think the Tyrant's definitely stolen the spot where this Magnum used to be in my heart. So those are kind of my 3 favorite soft Swimbaits to fish this time of year. Which one is your guys' favorite? I know there's a ton of them now on the market. Everybody kind of has their own preference on what they want a soft bait to do and how it's rigged and how it looks even. So let me know with a comment down below which soft bait is your guys' favorite. And other than that, we will see you guys on the next episode. John in.